Am I the a-hole for making my husband choose between me and his son? I, 39F, am married to Dave, 44M, and he has a son named Avery, 19M, and an ex-wife named Diana, 42F. Avery has always been hostile towards me and blamed me for his parents' divorce, despite his dad not meeting me until 3 years after. I have tried my best to spend time with Avery, and I've been respectful of all the boundaries he set with me. Avery still hates me. It was fine with me, as long as he didn't treat me like crap because he hates me. Well, Avery started treating me like crap when he found out his dad was marrying me. He threw a fit, saying his dad needed his permission before marrying me, and that he wouldn't come to the wedding. His dad and I let it slide and sat down with Avery and Diana to try and figure out why he was upset. It didn't work, and Avery refused to see us until the wedding. At Dave and I's wedding, Avery objected to us being married in front of everyone and asked to make a speech in front of everyone later in the night. In his speech, he told everyone what a horrible person I was and that I was responsible for his parents' divorce and that I was a dirty homewrecker. Dave drove Avery back to Diana's, but the damage was done, and several wedding guests assumed that Avery was telling the truth. My wedding night was ruined because of this, and a good part of my family refuses to speak to me despite me explaining to them that this was not the case. Avery has continued to treat me like crap since then. He got mad at me once, so he dropped my cat off at a shelter 2 towns over, and refused to tell me where he was until he'd been put down. I wanted to keep my wedding dress after the wedding, and he tore it to shreds. Just 2 examples. I'll give more if anyone wants them. Finally, Wednesday, Dave and I had Avery over for dinner because Avery actually wanted to come. Long story short, when I went to get dessert and Dave wasn't there, Avery confronted me in the kitchen and began screaming at me and told me that I was a horrible person, as well as some other not-so-nice things. Dave eventually came in, Avery left, and I got pissed. I told Dave that I was tired of his son constantly attacking me and treating me like crap because of something he knows didn't happen, and that I'd put up with his bullshit for the last 6 years. I told him that he had to make a choice between me and Avery, because I wasn't putting up with Avery's crap any longer, and if it was a requirement of being married to Dave, I'd be filing for divorce. Dave told me it wasn't fair to make him make this decision, and I told him it might not have been fair, but it wasn't fair of him to let his son harass and attack me for years. The Redditor's verdict was not the a-hole. Edit 1. I've told Dave that I didn't want to be around his son several times, and got ignored. I was told that we'd go to therapy to try and sort things out, and it never happened. Edit 2. I don't know why his son blames me for the divorce. If your question is about that, I can't answer you. Update. To start, about 2 weeks after my post on Am I the A-hole, Avery stabbed me. Dave allowed him over to spend time with him, and I was making myself lunch. To make a long story short, Avery grabbed a knife from the knife block, and I had to be rushed to the hospital. Filed a police report. There wasn't enough evidence to make an arrest, and Dave was furious with me. As soon as I was released, I ran. I'm currently staying with my sister and am safe. Thank you, everyone who asked. I filed for divorce, and I'm working on getting a restraining order. I'm also going to work on getting myself into therapy once the world isn't going batshit, though that might take a while. I definitely need it. To those who told me that I made the post up for karma, thank you, it was totally obviously made up for karma/this. Also, to those who are calling me just as bad for not leaving right away, specifically Joe Nanimus in the comments section of Mr. Dessert Fox's video on my post. I know, now at least I'm a huge effing pushover and way too much of an optimist for my own good. I'll answer some questions from various places, specifically the Am I the A-hole post. I would have answered them there, but the post was locked because people can't be civil. What age was Avery when you, Dave and I, got married? He was 17. I met Dave and Avery when he was 13. I dated Dave for 4 years and have been married to Dave for 2 years. How did the son just drop my cat off at a shelter? The shelters around where I live are high kill. My guess is that he dropped my cat off and claimed he was a stray. Then he waited a month and told me that he was the one who got rid of my cat. What aren't you telling? You've left out a lot of the story. You won't tell anyone what you've done that is probably just as bad, etc. Here's what I left out. When I met Avery, I was very upfront with him. I told him I wasn't his mom, and I wouldn't act like his mom. Then he started becoming hostile and openly hateful of me. At first it was just him screaming and throwing tantrums, and stealing little things, like things from my small snack stash, little trinkets of mine, small gifts his dad sometimes got me, etc. Then it went to him destroying things, like taking photos off the wall and throwing them against the ground as hard as he could, sticking things into the garbage disposal, dumping makeup into the toilet, and eventually stabbing the couch with a pair of scissors. Eventually, it turned to full-on threats. I lost my temper with him every so often, and would call Diana in front of him to tell her about what he was doing. The most parenting I would do was send him to his room if he was destroying something. When he dropped my cat off at the shelter, I screamed at him and cried. I told him he was a horrible person. After he fucked up my wedding, the next time I saw him, I asked him what the F he was doing, and got in a screaming match with him. So to sum up the answer to that question, not much. I can count on one hand the amount of times I've actually been mean to him, as in sending him to his room or getting in a screaming match with him. It was left out because of the character limit of the Am I the A-hole post. Why did Dave and Diana divorce? When Diana came to visit me in the hospital, I asked, and this is her answer. Dave wouldn't be a parent to Avery, as in he wanted to be more of Avery's friend than a parent, and he was never home. Dave works from around 6 in the morning to 6 in the evening, and passes out pretty quickly after he gets home. Why didn't I leave after my cat was put down? No clue. I should have left. How did the son get the mic to make a toast after objecting? Dave thought his precious angel was just having a hard time, and would shape up. Dave apparently ended up dating someone else after our divorce was finalized. Found out via Facebook. He stayed with this woman for about 2 months, and then they broke up. I actually happen to know the reason why, because she made a post on her own account. Avery showed up at her house threatening to kill her while he was drunk. This happened at around the same time he got caught trying to steal Diana's gun from her safe, so I'm just going to put 2 and 2 together and say that I think I know why he went for the gun. Avery ended up being arrested for it, though I don't think he was charged with anything. If he was, I don't think he had to serve any time. This happened about a year ago, and about 3 months ago I got a call from Diana. We didn't talk much after I left, because I believe she figured it would be easier for me to not have to hear about any of that anymore. Avery died. His death was called a suicide, though they're not exactly sure if that's the case. It happened at a party, and that's what everyone else said apparently. Somehow he ended up with some handgun, and they think he shot himself. I'm not sure I totally believe that, but I don't want to think about it too much. It's definitely plausible. Avery spiraled pretty badly after I ran, if you can call it that. I feel somewhat sorry for Dave, but I mostly feel sorry for Diana. Their kid was an awful human being, but they didn't deserve to go through the pain of losing him. No matter how I felt about him and the awful things he did to me, I couldn't bring myself to feel happy that he died. I mean, I'm relieved, if that makes sense, but I'm not happy about it. It feels like it would be wrong to be happy about it. I did end up getting myself into therapy after I got settled. I've been looking back at some of the things I wrote when it was all initially going on, and honestly, I'm kind of alarmed with how little I reacted to the things that were happening. I feel like I was just exhausted at the time. I brought it up to my therapist, and she told me it was probably just my way of trying to not break down with everything happening around me. But I'm in a much better place now. I'm looking into getting myself a new cat, and I'd even open myself up to the idea of dating again.